This episode brought to you by Peter Wood's Museum of the Impossible.
What's a Museum of the Impossible? It's gonna be like Harry Potter meets Ripley's Believe It or Not. It'll be a one-of-a-kind, themed, interactive space where people can experience the impossible. But I need your help. To get the project started, I've set up a Patreon over at museumoftheimpossible.com. If you're able to throw a few bucks my way each month, we can build it together. Thanks for your support, and I can't wait to welcome you into the Museum of the Impossible.
Welcome to the podcast of the impossible. I'm Peter Wood, and my guest today is a magician in the DC area, as well as the host of the pop-up comedy show Classified Comedy. Join me in welcoming Mr. Charlie Ross.
Charlie. Thanks, guys. Thanks. Please stop.
Bill Malone. I want to talk about where Classified Comedy came from. What was sort of you'd been going to open mic nights and sort of doing your own, stuff on the DC theater scene. What made you think I want to assemble a show like this? I want to be a part of it.
Yeah, I think I had a friend of mine just kind of put the idea in me. Okay. It's really like my older brother has a really close friend who was involved in like this underground rave scene in DC.
Oh, cool.
And him and his buddies had built like this big sound system, these huge cabinet speakers, and they do like dubstep shows and cool house parties and warehouse stuff. He was just kind of encouraging me like, you should have your own show, you should do like a show somewhere. And so the first idea was like, oh yeah, could I do it at like where the warehouse where like these raves are, just like you guys have speakers and lights, and like a space there, So they let me. I don't think I even rented the space. I think they just we just sold tickets for it and like split it. And it was just looking for it because it was going to be like a pop-up. It wasn't going to be like, I didn't know if it was going to be every month. I didn't know if it was going to be the same spot. Yeah. It was nice to call it. It's very DC too, undercover classified comedy.
Yeah, that's great.
Because that way, it could pop up. Yeah, we would do it at different venues, and like there's no commitment to it. It makes this, originally it was going to be like secret address. Like we're not going to tell you where it is, we'll tell you day of. And it turns out people don't like that much.
Yeah.
People want to look it up on their maps and they want to know where the fuck they're going.
Sure, exactly.
So, really, it was just the branding of it. It was just like a secret agent guy, Cool. But it's been going pretty well. I haven't done a show recently, but I'm trying to get stuff going back again.
Okay.
This summer. We have a really cool black box theater spot on F Street downtown. And that's a really good venue. So, hopefully I'll start doing some more of those.
That's awesome. Then when you would be doing those, were you typically the MC host, or were you having someone else help with that sort of thing? Yeah,
it kind of sucks because especially over the pandemic, we did a couple of like backyard shows.
Oh, cool.
And when I say we, my roommate, one of my best friends, Graham, he's this sound engineer guy.
Okay.
And we were getting some, I was unemployed, getting some nice paychecks from the government.
Sure.
And we just bought some speakers to use for like this backyard comedy shows we wanted to do.
Okay.
And so he's been building, like he's had these speakers for a while. We've been renting them out and, being hired for other events and stuff.
Nice.
But it sucks to like have to set up this venue, where we have to do the lights and the sound, and we had to go rent chairs and then put the chairs there and then like pack them up at the end of the show.
Right.
So it's been a couple of times where it's like we're coming down to the wire when the show's supposed to start, and I'm not even thinking about my set or my act. So like I have to be the one to start the show, and it's already like a hard spot to be in. It's already not the easiest place.
Sure.
So it's been a couple of times where it's kind of frustrating because you're like, you want this. It's all supposed to be for me. It's supposed to be my career that we're bettering right now. But it's also great just to like bring funny friends on, have people at shows, and be like, these are my friends. Like give good stage time to comics who normally like we're doing these god awful shows, but it's nice when it's like kind of my friends showing up and people that we know. So it is it was good like lessons in like building a fan base and selling tickets and getting events ready to go.
Sure. Yeah. Do you have to be careful about who's on the bill? Like, does that ever create weirdness of like either it's full or you don't feel like someone's ready yet, or are you usually able to say yes it just might be a shorter spot kind of a thing.
Yeah,
How does
yeah,
that-
yeah. No, you have to think about all that stuff.
Okay.
Usually it's kind of easy to say like, hey, I'm just kind of booking my friends night right now, but I'll get, comics will ask for stage time. We'd be like, yeah, I'll get to you eventually.
Sure, sure.
It's for just comedy shows. This style of shows were all like showcase shows.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I book like, 8 to 10 comics. Everyone's doing like 8 to 10 minutes. And a lot of these, like, you want a diverse selection of comics. So you want
Sure.
men, women, black, white, ethnicities all over the board.
Sure.
So some people are like, you book them back to back because like there's only so many women comedian out there, and there needs to be more.
Totally.
We need to even the playing field and give everyone opportunities. But it's too bad. Sometimes there's like just too many funny white guys in the scene,
Yeah.
and it's like I got a bunch of you guys, and like I'm gonna
Yep.
try and get to you eventually, but like it'll be a minute before I can. You want to put people on shows, but it's like
Totally.
you want everyone to feel like they're getting the best show that they can.
Well, and you're also, I mean, like that's one of the things I love about Penn and Teller Fool Us is that the magicians who go on there, and in particular the diversity of the magicians, is not indicative of what magic is right now, but it's what we would all like it to be.
Yeah.
And so I think that's great because now we're going to see rippling effects in the coming generations
Yeah,
of
huge.
people watching that and seeing like, oh, here's somebody who I can identify with in whatever identification that might be, who is also a magician. And I'm sure that's super important with comedy as well. Although I wonder if, comedy still feels like it's a little bit more ahead of that than magic. Like certainly in terms of, women in comedy and people of a variety of, skin colors and backgrounds in comedy. I feel like has been, getting much better, certainly in the last couple of decades,
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Well, that's because women believe in magic. They really. I'm kidding.
not just women, all women. let me.
They don't
Yeah.
like. They don't want to be. They want to be fooled. They like the mystery of it. But
It is. I mean, it's hard because in a lot of magic books, it'll say like, and be sure to pick a woman to do this trick because they always emote more. And I'm like,
They're
I don't know. That's I've seen some emotional guys and I've seen some women who really do not want to be a part of your stupid show. And,
yeah.
and like, you got to read the room, but-
Yeah. No, it is weird that we're still, this art is still stuck in this weird like.
Yeah.
You got to be like some ancient white guy to do sleight of hand magic. It doesn't make any sense, And yeah, it's weird. I think there's just something about the way we've presented magicians for the past like century, of just like it's a single guy on stage. It's usually like a closeted gay man who's making beautiful women appear on stage for some reason.
Which is why Arrested Development is even better, like that all of Job's arc, with that is fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we're slowly changing the approach of like badass women who can do magic like any other guy, or people of different races and backgrounds and stuff, and who can come in and have just different styles. I think magic is just stuck in this weird style trend where when people we're scared to invent something new, you kind of just like fall back on what works.
Yeah.
And what works is like classy, like dressed up, nice, like clean professional man stuff, and it's like, it doesn't have to be that, it can be weirder. It can be different, so we definitely need to encourage. And I think, you're right. The more you see women on screen and on stages and stuff doing like cool magic, the more it's going to inspire more other people to do that.
Yeah. No, I think and with comedy as well, and so so when you're putting these shows together, do you have like regulars who are following classified comedy, or do you find that it ends up being sort of different audiences depending on whoever those comics sort of bring in every time,
Yeah. I think the level of comics that I'm at right now, like none of us have any following.
Okay.
I think I got a little luckier with like, I'm from the area.
Sure.
And I've been doing magic since I was like in middle school. So this whole people kind of know me as like, this is Charlie, the magic guy. And like, oh, now he's doing stand up, and and so I have a lot of friends that still live in the area, and I've been able to fill shows up with like people that I know that want to come out and support me and support my friends. So it's like, I guess I can call them like a fan base, but like I can like kind of rely on like a monthly show. And then there's no prouder feeling though when I'm like, I'm doing digital marketing and trying to get flyers and stuff out there on Eventbrite, and I get strangers to come out to shows. And
Totally.
like, that's awesome. I'm like,
Yep.
I don't know what worked. I don't know how I did it.
Yeah,
But I'm
yeah.
like in love with this idea that people just like, yeah, we saw it on Facebook. You know, we saw some thing on Eventbrite,
Right.
you know, that suggested it to us, and they took they took a chance. They had no idea if this was gonna be good or not.
Yep.
They just see comedy show, like, let's see what it's like. They have to go to this weird venue, you know, it's kind
Yeah.
of weird, hard to find, and it's like, yeah. So God bless people who they like try to have new experiences, because that's the only
Totally.
chance I have, you know.
Yeah, no, that's always, and it is for, yeah, you want to, I remember Brian Curry, who's also been a guest on here, you know, talks about selling tickets to you know, in his case, magic shows, and talking about how, like, he doesn't know one way to sell 100 tickets. He knows 50 ways to sell 2 tickets.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, like, someone would come to a ticketed show that I'd be involved with, and I'd say, so how'd you find out about it? It's like, oh, we found you online somewhere. And I want to be like, okay, but where? Tell me exactly, you know, because like I put a lot more time into it than you realize.
Yeah.
And who knows if they, you know, maybe they saw a Facebook post somewhere, but then they also stumbled upon it on Eventbrite. You know, like there could be multiple answers, and you know, if we were selling something by the thousands, we would probably have better data for that. But the fact that we're doing a show with, you know, a few dozen people showing up, it's just really hard to sort of track what's working and what's not in terms of how they found us. You know?
Yeah. My favorite part of the classified shows was the fact that it was like the venue that I found.
Yeah.
And like I did everything for it, that it's like I really do have this ownership over it, where it's like it's not at a club where I have to talk to some GM, you know, or I have to worry about waiters or anything. It's like I bring in like a mobile bar, some people selling drinks in the back.
Cool.
And it's like the show ends and like we're allowed to be here as long as I want, you know, we don't have to turn anything over.
That's
it's this
great.
cool like control I can have over like, this is all me, you know, like I don't have to worry about like what other people are telling me to do. So I really like that, and I want to keep fostering stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, when you, and I'm sure that comes down in the product. I mean, that people will get a sense of that. I'm sure, like that it's all sort of, it's a lot more chill and relaxed, and there's also not the sort of weird, maybe desperation that might come from sort of the wanting to please the club owner or something like that. Like it sort of gets more pure, I guess. You know?
Yeah, definitely.
No, that's so. I'm also curious. But for both magic and comedy, everyone's got sort of some go-to horror stories in terms of a person that they were working with on stage, or a heckler, or a venue, or a gig. Do you have any that come to mind, like the ones where, again, cutting up jackpots is the industry term, where we're all sitting around after the show and we're telling these tales about these crazy things that have happened, you know? What are your sort of any go-tos with that?
Yeah, I remember I was trying to get in with this really this cool comedy club in DC, and I was like working the door, and so you have to like, you check people in for like early shows, you're there like all night, and then there's like an 11 o'clock show at the end of the night.
Okay.
It goes to like 1 a.m. or something.
Okay.
And you get to go on at the end of that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's really putting in your dues. And,
Yeah.
So I'm like, people are like texting me like, Charlie, what are you doing tonight? I'm like, oh, I'm working the door here, you know? And they're like, you know, these friends of mine are like, oh, we'll come through to that. Like, we don't have any other plans. Like, we're going to come support you, you know? Like, great. Awesome. Thanks, friends, for coming through.
Yeah.
And then they get there and they show up for the 11 o'clock show, and they're already drunk, and they keep drinking there, and they're literally like asking the MC, you know, this like much cooler comedian than me, this much more experienced guy's like, hey, when is Charlie going on?
No.
And like you just want to grab them, like, dude, shut the fuck up.
Right. No, you're not. Oh,
You're
no.
not helping me at all.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so things like that. And then I had another the last classified show I did, like a childhood friend, like a high school friend of mine. It's like his older sister came to the show, and she was like by herself, blackout drunk already.
Oh no.
But just like, it's the funniest heckling because it's the most supportive heckling.
Yes.
Where like a comic just brings up a premise and she's just like, woo!
Right.
Yeah. And it's like, you're not listening to anything. You're
Yeah.
just cheering, you're just clapping, you're just doing stuff. And it's literally like, it's so funny to take out such a supportive person and be like, hey, you got to leave now. You can stand out there, but you can't be a part of this anymore, you know?
The hardest heckler to stop is someone who's positive. I mean, even if they're like, I love you, Charlie.
Yeah.
But like, that if they do that enough and are interrupting enough, that like that is just as bad as you suck, because it's taking people out of the show, you know.
Yeah.
But then if you're trying to shut them down or get them out of there, and all they've been doing is being supportive, you know, in an inappropriately drunk way, but still like the idea that they're getting across is that they're loving what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah. And
That's hard.
open mics are they can be too low key sometimes, where
Okay.
it's like it's set up at a bar, you know, or people don't know about a show, or it's like a free show, so like, oh yeah, we'll check it out or whatever.
Right.
And sometimes like when you don't turn the lights off, you know, and it's just like a part of the room,
Yeah.
it becomes too like low key and conversational. So you get a lot of people who are like willing to like shout back at you or like try and add to the show or whatever. So
Yeah.
it's these situations where you gotta try and remind people like, hey, this doesn't seem like a theater production, but like
Yeah.
this is theater. Like you gotta shut up, you
Yep,
know, like
yep,
unless
yep.
I ask you to. Like this is a production. This is the show's happening.
Right.
There's a line in the middle here, and like you stay over there, I stay over here. So
Well, and it's got to be even harder, though, for the audience to pick up on that. And not only when there's alcohol in their system, but also when it is something like an open mic where you have a variety of comedians with a variety of skill sets in being able to command the stage and tell a compelling or funny story and sort of like shut down anyone who needs to be shut down, you know, because you're sort of trying to create a safe fostering space for these people to do this really scary thing, to get up on stage and you know, bare your soul. And then at the same time, you know, some guy's heckling you. Like that's a rough situation, you know?
yeah, yeah. But you do, I mean, every comic, like that's where you get the skills of like,
Yeah.
it's good to have these hecklers because you got to learn how to deal with them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's like you can just be mean and tell them to like stop talking, or you can embarrass them and embarrass them into silence. And it's like these are the skills you want to learn how to do, of like not ribbing on people too much, adding to the show, making it you know, using it as a joke and trying to make something better, because nothing will stop a show faster than like you're a substitute teacher up there, like, all right, everybody has to stop talking right now. You
Oh
know?
yeah.
Like,
yeah.
1, 2, 3 eyes on me.
Sure. No, that's well, and the other, I mean, even I remember this more from like doing kids shows than from doing, you know, a lot of the stuff that I do now. But, you know, I am always, if someone is acting up, I have to be thinking about not only how do I stop them from messing up the show, but also the way I do it. I don't want it to color how all these other people picture me, because like you might be doing a show, and for example, for a family audience, and like there's a really ADD 8-year-old boy that like, if I say something to him to get him to be quiet, that may totally work for him and he may be completely on board with it. But if there's like a really shy little girl on the other side there, and the way I treated that kid now like scares her, or there's paints me in a different light, you know. And I'm sure the same is true in stand-up comedy as well, where like you gave a put down to someone who could take it, but now other people in the audience are sort of judging you or gauging you in a different way. So like finding that balance, you know.
I'm always blown away by like when you're performing for a kid and like the parent knows he's like, you know, a misbehaving child, you know, and they just let him roam, you know, and they're like, come on, like, you're not gonna do anything to help me, man. The most, I for some reason, I always have kids reaching into my pockets. I don't know if they're standing too close to me or if I'm like I'm doing too much pocket stuff, you know, but I'm like, what makes you think this is cool? Like, I am so uncomfortable.
Yeah. And yeah, you want the parent to be like, we don't put our hands in other people's stuff.
Yeah, dude. That's like a life lesson. It's a big moment.
I guess, some parents are paying attention. Some parents don't care. It just, it's all over and again, like, if it's a one-on-one thing, that's fine. But like the way, like if they, again, whether it's a child or whether it's a drunk adult, which are basically the same thing, you know, even if they're having a fine time with the show and you might be able to to get their hand out of your pocket, as it were, you know, you do want to affect how it, or think about how it affects the whole group, you know? No, it's, I don't have like a go-to heckler thing, just because I feel like it's so situational. It has so much to do with like, and also I'm just glad, like, I'm not a teacher. I don't have a curriculum. There are plenty of shows where I don't get to one whole routine because there was so much unscripted byplay. And sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not. Like sometimes the unscripted byplay is, you know, crowd work. You're having fun with the audience. But then other times it's somebody you needed to take some extra time to to get someone to keep someone from derailing the show, you know. But I do love, there's something fun being in the audience when a person on stage puts a person down in a blistering and satisfying way.
Yeah.
And I've seen it happen at Magic lectures too, which is also really funny. Where, you know, you've been to some of the, you know, we'll go to a touring magician is in town and they're going to share their particular expertise, you know, but then like a lot of guys, we talked about this a few episodes ago, like will raise their hand and ask a question that is a statement, you know, and you just want to be like, dude, I'm not at your lecture. I'm at this person's lecture. Like the person who I paid money and who I've heard of, not you, you know? But then, so sometimes it goes over like a regular, just a quick little blip, but then there've been some lovely times where, the person who's lecturing is like, oh, okay, yeah, that's interesting, but we have to talk about that later because we're not doing that now. Like, yeah. Remember what we're doing here.
Perfect example, man. Yeah.
That's it's a whole that is a fun way of learning, you know. Magic is fine in books and fine in videos, but there is something about seeing a person who's really good at it and actually being in the same room as them is you can't beat it, you know.
Yeah. I always hated, I mean, like it was always like college lectures where you're trying to get out of the class and it's like, does anybody have any questions? And some nerd raises their hand and you're like, everyone looks at them like, what are you doing? They have office hours,
right?
Like, and it's just to show off, just to like say something smart, and you're like, get out of here, man.
No, just a lot of times it's, well, I remember talking with Jay Sankey. He did a lecture at Barry's Magic Shop, and then I got a chance to drive
that lecture.
It was great. It was good. He actually did double, like it sold out, so he did two of them like back to back. But I got a chance to drive him back to his hotel afterwards. And it was a really great, it was like a 25-minute car ride. And there was so much great, insightful stuff just about, because I was sort of griping with him about, I'm sorry that, you know, that guy at the end was sort of, you know, asking a question that wasn't, you know, and Jay said, listen, I know that there are some guys who just need to come to this and just say like, hey, I exist. I'm still here and I know things. And I thought that was such a big of Jay and like a zen, like, okay, yeah, like I was annoyed as a fellow student at the lecture, but Jay was able to let that go and not shut the guy down because, you know, he sort of realized like, okay, maybe this is his only social event of the month, you know, and like, you and I are lucky that we get to go out and go to parties and both as magicians and comedians and just hanging out, but maybe we don't know what's going on in that person's life. So I appreciated that.
He's going to buy every product that Jay has.
Well, that's true too.
That guy is definitely going to come to the merch shop.
Yep. No, that's a whole nother,
I miss the lectures at Barry's, man. I learned stuff like probably for every single one I went to. I remember when Jeff McBride was there.
Yeah.
That's like a room the size of this, you know, with like legendary, it's just like this, doing, and like showing us stuff. And I took away so many things of like, just like card moves and things that I do that still work. And the stuff like the learning in person at the lecture is like, that's the stuff that really, really sticks with me.
Totally. Yeah. No, it was definitely, that's if anyone wants to learn magic and has the opportunity to do it in person, again, not necessarily one-on-one, like it's still fine in a group experience, but it's definitely different
the best like mentalist thing I have, I learned from Barry at a lecture. He's not a mentalist, you know, he's a children's performer, but he knows so much, you know, about like, and it was, I won't expose anything, but it was just this idea of like this key card principle. But you can perform it with like, all right, it's a borrowed deck of cards.
Right.
They shuffle the cards. You say like, hey, spread them out so you can see them all. And then you go, no, so only you can see them.
Yeah.
You just have this key card in your head. And so then it's all this acting stuff where you look away from them and you step away. And I do it for people now. And it's like the most amazing thing I do.
It's great.
Of just I don't touch the cards. And it's all about this buildup of like, and then you go back and you color it in. So like, so just to recap, this is your deck of cards. You shuffled them. You looked at them. You picked one out.
Right.
Cut it back in the deck. You cut it as many times as you want, you know, and then like...
That's brilliant.
It's so cool. And I probably, if I get it out of like a book or something, or I didn't have Barry explain to me like all these minute little details, it's like I probably wouldn't be doing it, you know?
Yep. Yeah. Sometimes you need to be fooled or impressed by it first.
Yeah.
And that's not going to happen in a book often, you know? Yeah, well, I appreciate your coming on here to chat with me about this. This was a delight as always, so thank you. And to our friend who's listening in on all of our chats here, if you're watching on YouTube, you already see it on the screen, but if you're listening, charlierossmagic.com is where you can find all of upcoming public shows, and also being able to invite Charlie to come to whatever cool event that you're planning in the area.
Book me.
Avail International, right? Anywhere in the...
I have a passport.
Okay, there you go. Have a perfect. That's awesome. And then at Charlie Ross Magic on social media. And that is going to do it for this episode of the Podcast of the Impossible. But for behind the scenes access to my Museum of the Impossible project, as well as info on my public shows and private events and social media, you can head on over to peterwood.com. I'm Peter Wood. Thanks.